A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Our Wednesday opportunity to check on the latest developments as they are happening. We call it breaking news out of Israel and more broadly across the Middle East. Mandy Worby is back with us. Hey Mandy, welcome back.
I'm glad to be here, thanks.
Mandy, we'll get to hostages and things like that shortly, but let's talk about one of the other issues, probably not as prominent in the headlines, and that is what's happening with the plan that was there for the Israeli Defence Forces to withdraw from Lebanon. What's happening there? Right,
well, they did have a withdrawal date. Then they had that extended to the 18th of February. That was yesterday. So the IDF have withdrawn from that southern portion of Lebanon. However, they're maintaining 5 bases there. And the primary reason is that Hezbollah can't be trusted, all right? The senior political officer has told the media in Israel that they're going to remain in Lebanon at 5 control points until the understandings are fully implemented by Lebanon. We will continue to firmly enforce the ceasefire in Lebanon. So what are these understandings, these ceasefire understandings? Well, one, that Israel would gradually withdraw its forces from Lebanon and Hezbollah would fully withdraw north of the Litani River. And the Litani River, just so you know, is a mere 29 kilometres from the Israel-Lebanese border. It's not very far at all. And before that, Hezbollah were literally right up to the fence line with Israel. Okay? I mean, I've been to a kibbutz there, up on the north, and while we were there talking, we were told, don't be on your phones, but if you just wave your hands up there, see those little pillboxes up there? That's Hezbollah. That's how close they were. Okay, and the second point is that the Lebanese army is required to deploy and take control over their own territory up to the border. Now, the concern is that Hezbollah has infiltrated the Lebanese army. If there are a lot of Shia Muslims in the army, then they're going to side with Hezbollah. The problem is that Hezbollah was actually, it was created to destroy Israel. And because that is its MO, this is the ideology that they have literally surrendered their minds and brains to. There won't be a full ceasefire. This is going to happen again. Remember, when you say ceasefire, if you look up the word ceasefire on the internet in Arabic, the word is hudna. And a hudna literally means we're going to have a pause in the cessations of war. We'll have a cessation till we can regroup, rearm, and then we're back at it. So that's what that means. The Israel's Defense Minister Katz, he said that the IDF enforcement activities against Hezbollah are going to continue at full strength. We will not allow a return to the reality of October 7. And Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani, he said that the IDF is going to maintain those outposts to protect Israeli citizens, to ensure an orderly process and transfer of control to the Lebanese army. And they may even stay months, if necessary, until Israel can be sure that there is going to be no more Hezbollah activity south of the Litani River. That remains to be seen. Yes.
We'll stay with Lebanon for a few moments.
Yep.
So Lebanon just to the north of Israel. A long history of civil unrest, even within the borders of Lebanon. In fact, the political structure in Lebanon is so complicated.
It's a shambles.
There's so many groups involved.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts here? Because there's been rumours of even a civil war in Lebanon.
Yeah. Listen, before the early 1970s, Lebanon was very prosperous. It was a very healthy, wonderful place. It was a majority Christian. It was known as the Paris of the Levant. But then Yasser Arafat actually and the PLO went into Lebanon in the early 70s. And you have to remember, they came out of Jordan. They were kicked out of Jordan because they caused civil unrest there. Look up Black September online and you can learn about what happened there. They were kicked out of Jordan, moved into Lebanon. They created absolute havoc there. They were eventually kicked out and went to Tunisia. But what that did, it sparked a civil war back then. You had the Shia and the Sunnis against each other. The Christians left. It's now no longer a Christian majority nation. It's about 70% Muslim. Half of that is half Sunni, half Shia, marginally higher with the Shia. 5% is Druze. They're counted as Muslim, but they're not. So it's an absolute shambles there. When Arafat was kicked out in 82 to Tunisia, it was 1982 that Hezbollah was formed, created by Iran for the purpose of destroying Israel. So Syria actually invaded and took over Lebanon and occupied it, and the world was silent, just saying. And so Syria and Iran have been controlling Lebanon, and they've used Hezbollah to do it. So right now that Hezbollah has basically been broken, there is a rising number of Lebanese who want to get control of their country again. But that means civil war, because there are still some who want Hezbollah. There are those who don't want Hezbollah. It's Sunni, it's Shia, there are Christians, there are Druze. It's all really, really complicated.
And, of course, you can't underestimate the hatred that goes on between Shias and Sunnis. And, as you say, civil war wouldn't be out of the question there.
Yeah.
Hey, let's come back to the hostages. Last Saturday, there were 3 released. There's another plan for this weekend.
Yeah.
Also, of course, in exchange, lots, hundreds, even 1,000, those prisoners that were held in Israel,
well,
let's
correct one little thing. They're not prisoners, they were terrorists. There's terrorists being released for innocent victims, these hostages. 19 hostages who were taken in war crimes, who've been abused, raped, starved, locked in tunnels underground. They were victims of war crimes. 19 of them have been released since the 19th of January. Over 1,000 terrorists were released in exchange. That is appalling. It is expected that this coming Saturday, Sunday, another 6 male hostages are going to be released, which is wonderful, probably for hundreds of terrorists again. But this Thursday, so tomorrow or Friday our time, Thursday Israel's time, we've been told that there will probably be about 4 dead hostages returned. Now, the Bibas family, remember Yarden Bibas, he was released a little while ago, a number of weeks ago now. His wife, Shiri, and his 2 little boys, his 2 little baby boys, Kafir and Ariel, they were kidnapped on October 7. The Bibas family has been informed that Shiri, Kafir and Ariel will be returned in the phase of the fallen hostages. Until there is certainty, our journey is not over, they say. So it hasn't been confirmed that they will be included. However, that's what they have been informed. So it may be that Yarden is going to get a dead wife and 2 dead little boys back.
And it can't be overlooked either, the way that the Israelis, and because of their Judeo roots, have such respect even for the dead remains of their people.
Yes.
It's a very, very powerful contrast to the sort of kill and murder mentality of their enemies.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk Egyptians to the south of Israel now. Egypt and a military build-up. What's happening there?
Yeah, I've been posting about this on my Facebook page for weeks now, that the Egyptian military are building up on the southern border. And this has been going on for years, I've just discovered. They started military build-up during the ISIS years, but this build-up is actually in violation of the peace treaty between Israel and Egypt. Now, what they were doing was they'd build all this military infrastructure, and then they'd go to Israel and say, oh, by the way, we've had to put these things up in the Sinai to deal with ISIS terrorists. You okay with that? And so Israel has had to capitulate and say, yes, okay, but it's happening more and more and more and more now. It's a violation of the peace agreement between them. Al-Sisi is really pushing for this. They've built bridges and tunnels. Some of these tunnels so big that they could actually literally move huge numbers of soldiers and equipment in the space of an hour up to the border with Israel. This is not boding well. There was Dr. Yagil Henkin. He is said that Egypt is using this method of creeping annexation, that first they would bring in the troops and then they would ask Israeli permission in retrospect, which was always granted. I mean, how is Israel supposed to say no, pull it all down? That would be seen as aggression because we're trying to protect ourselves from ISIS. But the thing is, ISIS is no longer there and they're not withdrawing. That's the problem. The other thing too is that with the Gaza plan that's come from President Trump, Egypt keeps saying they're vehemently opposed to it. Now, they say they love the Gazans, but they've done nothing to help the Gazans for the past 70 years. or the Palestinians. They've done nothing. But here's some other plans that are being touted, they've only just learned about, that if there are discussions between the US, India, Israel and Saudi Arabia about a trade corridor passing through Israel, bypassing the Suez Canal. Now, if that happened, that has the potential to absolutely devastate Egypt economically. So Egypt has got its knickers in a knot at the moment because they're not happy with the fact that, they kind of have to toe the line a little bit because they get $1.5 billion in aid each year from America, as well as military assistance. But they don't want to capitulate because if they did, here's the thing, they keep saying that the Gazans are not refugees, you can't send them out of their land. But according to the Palestinians themselves and the United Nations, the Palestinians in Gaza are refugees, which is why they claim a right to go back to Israel. Well, if they're not refugees and they have land and they're living and they have had houses in Gaza and shouldn't be forced to leave, why do you keep claiming they're refugees? Because if they are refugees, then they can go to Egypt and Jordan. If they're not refugees, then stop giving them funds through UNRWA because they're not refugees.
There's a twist and turn everywhere, isn't there? And even as you talk about, economic crippling of Egypt, there may well be another dimension there to a Trump deal that might be a negotiated thing. Yeah. Hey, let's talk Gaza, because the future of Hamas in Gaza, people are thinking about this because they're thinking, well, what happens when the plans are all exhausted and if Hamas is still in place? Does that mean something? What are your thoughts?
Well, here's the thing. Hamas is pretty desperate. They don't want to leave Gaza because they want to be able to regroup and redo what they've just done. They don't want to leave. They want to stay there. Remember, Hamas has one goal, but that it was what it was actually developed for in 1988, and that is the absolute destruction of Israel. That's the only reason they exist. They have to be in Gaza to do that. They have to be somewhere to do that. But here's the thing, Hamas is saying now, this is the leader of Hamas, Khalil al-Hayya, he said that Hamas is ready to immediately enter negotiations for a second phase, which would include a complete ceasefire, a prolonged period of calm and full withdrawal of the IDF from the Gaza Strip, and the completion of a prisoner exchange deal in one go during a second phase. Now, here's the thing, that sounds all very nice and well and good, but they're not saying that they're going to cease fighting altogether and put down their weapons and govern their people properly. They're saying there would be a prolonged period of calm and a full withdrawal of IDF forces. That means it's a hudna. We want a ceasefire, we want calm so we can regroup, redig our tunnels, get more weapons in, then we're going to try to do October 7 again because they've promised it repeatedly. All right, now the IDF can't withdraw because they have to be able to maintain security and protect their citizens. But Hamas also was toying with the idea of, okay, look, what we'll do is we're going to cede government control of the Gaza Strip to the PLO, the PA. They can run it. And, some of our guys will go overseas so long as they can get their salary. And some of them will join the PLO and just will run the government that way. And the Israelis are saying, no, it's not going to happen. The PLO currently have governance over various Palestinian towns and communities in Judea and Samaria. They are terror nests for Hamas that Israel has been uprooting because there have been terror attacks coming out of their tunnels under homes, schools, mosques, you name it. Same thing that was happening in Gaza is happening in these towns and cities that the PLO has governance. They can't control them. So Israel is saying, absolutely not. There is no room for governance in the Gaza Strip by either Hamas, the PLO, PA, or a combination of the both. It's not going to happen.
Well, there are challenging times ahead, and Mandy, you make it sound even a little more simpler than the complexity that we're all just baffled by when we look at the Middle East and their values and their spirituality, the way they see leadership. It's just all so different in the Middle East.
Totally.
And appreciate your insights once again. And
I just ask people to pray, Neil. Just pray.
Well, we're all commanded,
we
pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And if the peace of Jerusalem is right, then all of these other nations surrounding can be peaceful as well. Mandy, thanks so much for your update today on 2020.
My pleasure.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.